Okay, we are back with another listening and speaking exercise. We have this short story, Journey into Time. It is 2 pages long, and we are not going to really focus on vocabulary. Instead, we're just going to pick some interesting words and phrases and practice them as we go along. So I will read 1 or 2 paragraphs, and then I will stop and we will do a little fluency speaking exercise with some of the information contained in those paragraphs. If you're watching this live with me, then of course, if you don't understand something or if you have a question about something, definitely just go ahead and write it in the comments, and if I see it, I will be happy to answer any of your questions. So let's start with Journey into Time. Okay, here we go. Klain stepped back in triumph and looked exultantly at the time machine he had just finished. Of course it was untested as yet, but he was certain it would work. All he would have to do would be to connect the machine to his portable atomic power generator and wait the necessary 2 hours for the power to build up to the correct intensity. Then he'd press a switch, and that would complete the temporal magnetic circuit, and soon he and the time machine would be instantly transported to the past or future, depending on what time he had set the dials for. Now, the phrasal verb in this paragraph, step back, you've got step and you've got back going in reverse. It means to position yourself far away from something or a little bit farther away from something so that you can get a better perspective or a bigger picture of something. It's used quite a bit. When you step back, it means you're too close to something to see it properly. And if you step back, you can maybe see the entire picture and have a better understanding. Let's see how it works in a sentence. Mary was working on a complicated problem. In order to get a better picture of the problem, she took a 1-day break. So she's in the middle of that problem, that complicated problem, and it's so complicated and frustrating. She took a 1-day break. That's like going in reverse, and because she moves away from it, she can see the problem better. Maybe she can find an answer that way. She took a 1-day break and relaxed and had a wonderful lunch and visited some friends, so that when she returned, the problem looked fresh or new. So she stepped back for a day. She moved backwards so that she could look at the problem in a fresh way. Mary stepped back to get a fresh view. She stepped back to get a fresh view. Let's make a when question. When did Mary? When did she? When did she step? When did she step back? When did she step back to get a fresh view? When did she step back to get a? When did she step back to get a? When did she step back to get a fresh view? When did she step back to get a fresh view? When did she step back to get a fresh view? Let's answer when the problem became too complicated. She stepped back. She stepped back. She stepped back to get a fresh view when the problem became too complicated. She stepped back to get a fresh view when the problem became too complicated. Let's change some words. Let's say to get a different perspective. She stepped back to get a different perspective. She stepped back to get a different perspective when the problem became too complicated. She stepped back to get a fresh view, to get a different perspective when the problem became too complicated. Okay, let's change some other words. Let's use too confusing. She stepped back to get a different perspective when the problem became too confusing. She stepped back to get a different perspective when the problem became too confusing. Let's change some other words. Let's use when she realized. She stepped back to get a. 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 She stepped back to get a different perspective when she realized. When she realized the problem became too complicated. She stepped back to get a different perspective when she realized the problem became too complicated. Now this phrase, as yet, which is also used in this paragraph, as yet, this can be used with a negative adjective, and it means not yet. It's another way of saying not yet. Let's see how it works. Let's take what you probably know, the phrase not yet, and make a sentence. The book is not finished yet. The book is not finished yet. What is the adjective in that sentence? Finished. Can you think of how to make the negative form of that adjective? Finished? Unfinished. Unfinished. That is the negative form. Not finished. Unfinished. Now we can say the book is as yet unfinished. The book is as yet unfinished. That means not yet finished, but it's just a different way of saying it. The book is as yet unfinished. Okay, let's see. Or we can say the yet unfinished book. That means it's not ready. It's not finished yet. It means not finished yet. It's just a different way of saying that. It sounds a little bit fancier, a little bit more formal to talk like that, but people do it, sure. So let's see. Let's try another example. Here's another situation. The package is not delivered yet. What is the adjective in that sentence? The package is not delivered yet. Delivered. Can you think of how to make that adjective negative? What is the negative form of delivered? Undelivered. Undelivered. So instead of saying the package is not delivered yet or not yet delivered, we can say the package is as yet undelivered. It means the same thing. It just sounds a little bit fancier. The package is as yet undelivered. The as yet undelivered package, you could say. Let's try one more example. Let's say the room isn't cleaned yet. The room isn't cleaned yet. What is the adjective in that sentence? Cleaned. And what would be the negative form of cleaned? Uncleaned. Uncleaned. That means not cleaned. So if we want to say not cleaned yet, but using uncleaned, how would you say it? The room is as yet uncleaned. The as yet uncleaned room. It just means not yet cleaned. Okay, let's keep going. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Eager to test out his new invention, Klain hooked up the generator and sat down to wait for 2 hours. But he was too impatient and excited to sit idly. He'd have to do something to keep his mind occupied while waiting. And he knew just the thing to keep him absorbed for hours on end. His files of ancient tattered adventures into the unknown magazine. Well, that's the name of the magazine that published this story from 1952. It's called Adventures into the Unknown magazine. So they're promoting their own book here, or their own magazine. All right, the phrase on end is a pretty interesting phrase. It's something that you can use. It's very frequently used with any kind of long period of time, or something that at least seems long. So you can say hours on end. days on end, weeks on end, months on end, years on end. It's just another way of saying many, 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 many hours, many, 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 many weeks. Whenever it seems like a long time, you can use on end after a time expression, and it will make it sound much longer. Let's try an example. Every day he reads for many, 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 many hours. Okay, we can say this in a better way. We can say hours on end. He reads for hours on end. He reads for hours on end. And that means he reads every day for hours on end. That means he reads for many, many, many hours. Let's try another example. Lisa tried calling John every day. Actually, many days in a row. Not just 1 or 2 days in a row, but for many, many days. 14 days, 21 days, 30 days. We can say, she tried calling John for days on end. That phrase on end makes it sound like many, 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 many days. It's a very common phrase. She tried calling John for days on end. All right, let's see. Do I have another example? Okay, here's one more example of on end. John went to school for many years. If we want to make it sound like it wasn't just 3 or 4 years, but maybe 10 years, or 15 years, or 20 years to study a particular subject, we can say years on end. That means many, 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 many years. John studied for many years. He studied for years on end. Years on end. Years on end. He studied for years on end. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph here. Only last week, in one of the suburbs of New York, known as Philadelphia, he had the amazing good luck to find an antique shop that had a file. Oh, I'm forgetting to move this. Let's see. Must be around here somewhere. Okay. Philadelphia, he had an amazing good luck to find an antique shop that had a file of adventures into the unknown, complete from the first issue in 1948 through the year 2007. Klain had heard glowing tales about the marvelous magazine of the macabre, but he had never previously seen an issue, for the few remaining copies in existence were carefully guarded collector's items. Oh, good morning, Fabian. How are you doing? So we're just reading another short story here and practicing some phrases. I hope you find this useful. Okay, let's keep going. Got to move up here to the top, I think. Where did I stop? Okay. Once every few years, an odd copy or two would be unearthed from someone's attic, and it would bring a fabulous price on the black market. Be sure to ask questions, Fabian, if you see or hear anything that I don't explain to you that you want to know about, okay? But as far as he knew, the only complete file of the magazine was to be found in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., where only professors of occultology were allowed to handle and read those priceless relics of a bygone age. But there, in that obscure little antique shop, he'd found another complete file that the dealer had cautiously unlocked with his huge safe and shown Klain the entire lot. Wait a minute. Okay, wait, I better read it here. Whispering confidentially, I can let you have it for a song. An expensive song, true, but it'll be worth it. It will be worth it. It'll be worth it. You see, I picked up this lot from the widow of a wealthy old fantasy fan who had inherited the file of magazines. The widow hated her late husband's... Let's move this up. hobby of collecting fantasy magazines. So he actually paid me to take them out of her house. Out of her house. Out of her house. She paid me to take them. She paid me to take them. She paid me to take them out of her house. She actually paid me to take them out of her house. That's why I can let you have the whole file comparatively cheaply. One glance at a few of the stories in the magazines had convinced him that they were literally priceless masterpieces. Buying them on the spot, Klain had ordered an armored truck to cart the huge files of magazines to his laboratory. There, wary... Oh, wait, let's see. Okay. There, weary with the incessant toil on his time machine and in need of relaxation, he had begun to read the early issues. Soon he forgot all of his problems as he thrilled to the series of stories on the living ghost, shivered at the spirit of Frankenstein tales, was entranced by such epics as the evil... As the what? What is this? The evil what? I'm reading from one place, but I can't... Oh, I don't know. Okay, Vampire Castle and Haunted Morgue. Doesn't matter. Let's move on to the next page here. So we're just in the middle. I have some exercises to go along with this, but there's a time where there's not much to talk about. So, but we're getting to some more exercises in a minute. Okay. By the time he'd gotten through the 1950 issues, Klain was so stimulated and refreshed that he'd returned to his work on the time machine with redoubled vigor. Remember, we had the word vigor the other day. Vigor means a lot of life, a lot of energy. And the adventure into the future story gave him the key to the solution of a tricky circuit problem that had stumped him for the past 3 years. So let's talk about the word so plus an adjective. What's the difference? Fabian, do you know what the difference is between saying so tired and very tired? Or have you ever wondered about that? So tired versus very tired? They both mean a lot. I'm very tired. I'm so tired. Especially in modern English, people will say, I'm so tired. But really, if you're going to use the word so, you should probably mention a reaction, either a positive or negative reaction to being tired. Let's try an example. Like, for example, if you say, I'm very hungry, in modern conversational English, you can also say, I'm so hungry. And that sounds much stronger than very. But really, if you're going to say, I'm so hungry, you should talk about what that accomplishes or doesn't accomplish. So, for example, no, so tired is actually not informal or formal. It's just, if you use so, you should probably talk about a reaction to being tired. Like, oh, I'm so tired. I need to sleep. Some kind of reaction to it. And if you say I'm very tired, that's a complete idea already. So in English, there's an expression, I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. So usually you have to say, if you say I'm so hungry, you have to talk about a result, or what does it accomplish or not accomplish. Let's see. That really is an expression. I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse. Let's see what else. I have some things here. Okay, so for example, we can say Mary is very pretty. Okay, that's a complete idea already. Mary is very pretty. In modern conversational English, you can also say Mary is so pretty. She is so pretty. And it's maybe stronger than very. But really, if you're going to say she's so pretty, there should be more. There should be a consequence, or there should be a reaction to pretty. So for example, Mary is so pretty, She receives 10 marriage proposals every month. So there's a reaction or a consequence to being this pretty. That's usually when you should use so. Technically, when you should use so. Oh, you could say I could eat a cow. But, you eat cows anyway. But people don't normally eat horses. I think that's why we say that. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, because normally you wouldn't eat a horse. I guess it doesn't taste good. That's what I've never had horse before. I've never eaten horse before, so I don't know if it tastes good or not. But it's pretty extreme to eat a horse. So let's try another example. If we say Mike is very skilled, Mike is very skilled, that's already a complete idea. It means he has a lot of skill. In modern conversational English, you can say he is so skilled. That's okay, people do that. But really, there should be more information. What does that do? What is the consequence of being skilled? So let's complete the idea and say, let's see. Well, actually, let's make a question. So we have Mike is skilled, or he is skilled. How would you make a how skilled question? How skilled? How skilled is he? How skilled is Mike? How skilled is he? Actually, that's an interesting sound, right? How skilled is he? How skilled is he? How skilled is he? How skilled is he? Okay. Now you could answer, he's very skilled. You could say he's very skilled, and that's already a complete idea. And in modern conversational English, you can also say, oh, he's so skilled. You can do that. But really, if you're going to use so, there should be some more information. What is the consequence of having this much skill? So we can say he is so skilled that what? He receives job offers every day. He's so skilled that he receives job offers every day. That's really how you should use so. Put more information after it. What does being this skilled do or not do? Okay, he's so skilled that he receives job offers every day. All right, let's try one more example. The book is interesting. The book is interesting. How would you make a how interesting question? How interesting is the, or how interesting's the book? Let's see, is it a little negative? Fabian is asking, is it a little negative way or exaggerated form too? It could be. It could be, especially if you emphasize the word so. I'm so hungry. Or, if you're talking to your friends, maybe you could say to your friend, you're so stupid, or you're so funny. You can do that. But if you do that, you should really extend that word so and exaggerate the word to show that you're doing an exaggeration. But in a neutral way, probably you would want to add more information. What is the consequence of being that stupid or that funny or whatever? So if we have, for example, the book is interesting, how do you make a how interesting question? How interesting is the, or how interesting's the? How interesting's the book? How interesting is the book? How interesting's the book? How interesting is the book? Or how interesting is it? How interesting is it? The complete answer could just be, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But if we use so, and you can also say that, oh, it's so interesting. But if you do that, probably you should put more information. It's so interesting, I read it 10 times. The book is so interesting, I read it 10 times. It's so interesting that I read it 10 times. All right, let's return to the story. Now, with all of his work completed, Klain sat happily reading the 1951 issue as he waited for the power to build up in his time machine. Each issue of the magazine seemed to get better and better, for there were tales of zombies, witches, werewolves, demons, a veritable galaxy of ghosts and ghouls. And the text stories, the ones accompanied by the illustrations, this is an example of the text story, the one I'm reading now, were also hair-raising yarns of horror and fantasy. Here was one that had an intriguing title, Journey into Time. Clayne's eyes suddenly widened in amazed disbelief as he read the opening lines of the story. Slowly, as though hypnotized, he repeated the lines aloud. Clayne stepped back in triumph and looked exultantly at the time machine, as he had just finished, of course. It was untested as yet, but when he got to the part that read, Clayne's eyes suddenly widened in amazed disbelief as he read the opening lines of the story, he flung the magazine away from him and in a frenzy of fear, and there was no doubt about it. The story was about him. Someone living in the year 1952 had known enough about Clayne of 2258 to write a perfectly factual story about him, correct in every detail. So Clayne is in the future, and he's reading about himself in the past. Now, remember that movie Back to the Future? A lot of times when you see that word back, especially in a phrasal verb, it has the idea of return, like give back means return something. And go back or come back also can mean return. If we say he went back to the past, he went back to the past, how would you ask a yes-no question with that sentence? How would you make a yes-no question with the sentence, he went back to the past? Did he go? Did he go? Did he go? Did he go back to? Did he go back to the past? Did he go back to the past? And the answer is no. So how would you answer no to this question? No he didn't. No, he didn't. No, he didn't go. No, he didn't go back to. No, he didn't go back to the past. Let's say went into the future. Went into the future. No, he didn't go back to the past. He went into the future. He went into the future. He went into the future. No, he didn't go back to the past. He went into the future. He went into the future. No, he didn't go back to the past. He went into the future. Can you say all of that? No, he didn't go back into the past. He went into the future. All right, let's continue reading the next paragraph. That meant only one thing. In a sudden fit of anguish, it could only mean that someone in the 20th century had invented Clayne. Wait a minute. Am I missing something here? Let me look at the printed story. I retyped the story somewhere else and I'm reading that, but maybe I made a mistake here. Let's see. Invented. Where is it? That meant only one thing. He knew in a sudden fit of anguish it could only mean that someone in the 20th century had invented a time machine. That's what I was missing, a time machine. And had secretly come to the year 2258 to gather material for adventures into the unknown. And that meant that Clayne was not the first man to invent the time machine. All right, so he's realizing that he did not invent the time machine. I don't know. This is, these time travel stories, they confuse me. So I don't really understand why he came to that conclusion, but whatever. According to the paragraph here, Clayne did not invent the time machine. So if we say he invented the time machine, he invented the time machine, how would you make a yes-no question with that? Did he invent? Did he invent the time machine? Did he invent the time machine? Did he invent the time machine? No, he did not. No, he didn't. No, he didn't invent. No, he didn't invent the. No, he didn't invent the time machine. No, he didn't invent the time machine. Now let's answer a different person invented the time machine, meaning an alternative person, not the person you think. So we'll say someone else. That means a different person in this context. Someone else invented the time machine. No, he didn't invent the time machine. Someone else invented the time machine. No, he didn't invent the time machine. Someone else invented the time machine. Okay, let's go back to the next paragraph. It was then that he knew he would have to use his time machine to go back to the year 1952 and find the man who had written about him, find out about the other time machine. Impulsively, Klain stepped into his time machine and set the dials for 1952, and then without thinking, he pressed the switch that closed the temporal magnetic circuits. All right, what if I make a sentence and I say that he wants to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend? So that's the reason, to find his girlfriend. How will you make a yes-no question with that sentence? He wants to go back to 1952. How would you ask a yes-no question with he wants to go back to 1952? Does he? Does he want to? Does he want to? Does he wanna? Does he want to? Does he wanna? That's how it sounds. Does he want to? Does he wanna? Does he want to go back to 1952? Does he want to go back to 1952? Does he want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend? Does he want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend? Does he want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend? All right, does he want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend? And let's answer no. How would you say that? No, he does not. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't want to. No, he doesn't wanna. No, he doesn't want to go back. No, he doesn't want to go back to. No, he doesn't want to go back to 1952. No, he doesn't want to go back to 1952 to find. No, he doesn't want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend. Okay, and then what is the correct answer? What does he want to find? To find the person who invented the time machine. This is going to be a very long sentence. Let's see if you can do it. He doesn't want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend. He wants to go back to 1952 to find the person who invented the time machine. Can you say all of that? It's really hard. He doesn't want to go back to 1952 to find his girlfriend. He wants to go back to 1952 to find the person who invented the time machine. That's really hard. Can you do it? Okay, let's see. Let's keep reading here. Instantly, he felt himself being hurled with great force to the ground, and the tides of black unconsciousness swirled over him. When he revived, hours later, he dazedly found himself in an unfamiliar field on the outskirts of a strangely ancient-looking city. Picking himself up, he saw the wreckage of his time machine about him. With a start, he realized he must have crash-landed in the year 1952, since he hadn't waited a full 2 hours that would have enabled him to make a smooth, safe landing. Now he was marooned in 1952, because he could not possibly hope to get the advanced technical equipment of the 23rd century equipment that was essential to rebuild the time machine and allow him to return to his own age. Now, the way they're using the word about in this paragraph is when he says the wreckage was all about him, may not be familiar. You may not be familiar with this, using about in this way. But what it means is around. So you can use the word about to mean around, physically around. So let's say Mary is very happy where she works. Mary is very happy where she works. And how would you make a why question with that sentence? Why? Why is she? Why is she happy? Why is she happy where she works? Why is she happy where she works? Or why is she? Why is she happy? Why is she happy where she works? Why is she happy where she works? And let's say the reason is there are many experienced people around her. So in the office, she works with many very experienced people. She's happy where she works because there are many experienced people around her. Around her. Around her. There are many experienced people around her. But we can say about instead of around, and it means the same thing. About her. There are many experienced people about her. About her. About her. There are many experienced people about her. She's happy where she works because there are many experienced people about her. Let's try another example. Mike was excited. Mike was excited. Can you make a why question with he was excited? Why? Why was he? Why was he? Why was he excited? Why was he excited? Why was he excited? Okay, and let's say he was traveling around a new city. He was exploring a new city, traveling around a new city. He was excited because he was traveling around a new city. He was excited because he was traveling around a new city. But you could use about if you want. It means the same thing. He was traveling about a new city. Traveling about a. Traveling about a. Traveling about a. He was traveling about a new city. He was traveling about a new city. He was excited because he was traveling about a new city. All right, let's keep going. Here's the next paragraph. Then, in a blinding flash of understanding, he knew that he was the author of Journey into Time. He himself had written it. A moment later, he was striding confidently towards a strange city, confident that he had a great career ahead of him as a writer of stories about the future, stories that no one else knew were true. And the first story he'd write about would be one for Adventures into the Unknown, a story that would be like this, that would start like this. Klain stepped back in triumph and looked exultantly at the time machine he had just finished. Okay, well, that's the end of the story, Journey into Time. And I hope you found it useful. Thank you, Fabian, for watching the whole thing. I'll probably be back today with a couple of other things, but that will probably be in a few hours. I have to work on them first, and then I will be putting them up. So maybe if you're around, I'll see you again, Fabian, and thank you everybody else who came to watch, and I will see you soon again. Goodbye.